Welcome to the Writing with Purpose podcast, inspiring readers, writers, and nature lovers to embrace creativity and nature connection for positive well-being. I'm your host, Anna Woolliscroft. Join me for heartfelt conversations about transformational journeys and practical tips with fellow writers, journaling guides, and outdoor enthusiasts. Discover how writing, reading, and nature connection can help you find clarity, spark creativity, and live a more fulfilling life. Whether you're a seasoned writer, a curious beginner, or simply someone seeking a deeper connection to life, this podcast is for you. It's wonderful to have you here today. On this episode of the Writing with Purpose podcast, I'm joined by Joanna Penn, award-winning author, podcaster, and creative entrepreneur who shares her incredible 20-year journey from IT consultant to international best-selling author. We dive into the creative process, the power of authenticity, and how embracing the messy stages of writing can lead to transformative success. Whether you're an inspiring writer or a seasoned pro, Joanna's insights will inspire you to keep showing up for your craft. Hi, so Joanna Penn, award-winning New York Times and USA Today best-selling thriller memoir author as J.F. Penn, award-winning podcaster, creative entrepreneur, and international professional speaker. Welcome to the Writing with Purpose podcast.
Oh, thanks for having me, Anna. It's great to be here.
Oh, you're more than welcome. I was very excited when you said yes. So you've been sharing your writing and publishing experience since 2008. Is that correct? 2008?
Yeah.
And you became a full-time author entrepreneur in 2011, and you've sold well over 1 million books in 176 countries in 5 different languages, and your podcast, The Creative Pen, has been downloaded over 10 million times and accessed across 229 countries. Wow, you're a busy person. How do you find the time?
It's funny, it all sounds a lot, but I feel like, when I started writing, I started the blog in 2008, but I started writing in 2005. So we're recording this in 2025. It's been 20 years. I mean, so this is the thing. If people feel like, oh, well, I haven't even started, I'm like, yeah, well, if you start now and then you wait 20 years, like you keep doing stuff. So realistically, I say all I've done, but what I have done for years is I write. So I write primarily books. I used to do a lot more blogging, but now, I don't really do that anymore. So I write books, and I have 2 podcasts, but The Creative Pen for Writers is my main one. And that's mostly what I do. And then I just share the process around doing that with other people who are interested. So yeah, I hope that encourages people more than anything else, that realistically it just is a case of writing and then obviously publishing, marketing, putting yourself out there. But if you keep doing that just a little bit, and it doesn't have to be every day, but I'd say it has to be at least every week. Yeah. For years. And what else would you rather be doing? I think that's the other thing. Like, some people say to me, oh, you must have loads of discipline. I'm like, seriously, no. Like discipline is not the thing. It is, what do you want to be doing? And so you don't need discipline if you want to be doing it, right?
Yeah, it's not like it's that work-life balance, because you're enjoying everything that you do and that just becomes part of life in general. Yeah. Well, congratulations.
There's no balance, by the way. There's just no balance. I mean, it really is all consuming.
Yeah. It's just being every day. It's being. Yeah, congratulations on your anniversary.
Oh, well, it's not. I mean, I haven't got a particular date in 2005 when I started writing, but I did set an affirmation, which I have shared on my blog, and it is, I am creative, I am an author. And when I started with that affirmation in 2005, I did not feel creative, and I was certainly not an author. So I wrote it down on a little card, and I couldn't even say it out loud back then. Yeah. And then 3 years later, I started The Creative Pen with a double N, which is my actual name. And that was sort of the beginning. And by claiming the word creative for my life, it really helped me turn that into more of a practice and a career.
Yeah, definitely. You're sort of manifesting into that phase of your life from where you started. And yeah, I think it's very inspirational, because I was listening to your episode about your the 10 million podcasts. And, you know, it's just very refreshing to see how you talk about your journey and how you share things, where you make changes, why you make those changes. And I think that's sometimes where people, and this can be anybody in business, I think, and I certainly do this as well, we almost don't showcase that journey quite as much. We think we need to be all polished when something goes out on social media or publicly, whereas part of the authenticity, I think, is actually coming from where you've come from and showing that journey in every aspect of it, you know, the lows and the highs and how you've tweaked things.
Yeah, and it's funny because I have been YouTubing since 2008 as well, and 2007 I think I started on YouTube, and I've left the videos there because frankly they do show a journey. Or even like podcasting, as you say, when you start podcasting, you don't, for example, I didn't do an introduction, a personal introduction for years, maybe 4 years before I started sharing about myself. And then somebody, a listener, said, "Why don't you tell us more about you? Why is it always about the guest?"
Yeah.
And it was only then that I sort of realized, and this is true right now, people are here for you, Anna. They're not here for me. They're here for you. They want to come back every week to hear what you're doing. And that's true of any creator. You know, people are listening in partly to kind of see what we're doing, how we're living, how we're talking. So I think that's a really important part. But just to again encourage people, I used to implement accounts payable into companies. I used to write functional specifications, technical work. I was never a programmer, but I was like one step away from programming. So when I wanted to become a full-time writer, I didn't feel creative. I didn't know how it was going to work. I didn't know how to do any of this. I mean, when I started podcasting, you phoned someone up on a phone, a actual landline, and put it on a speaker, and then you recorded it with another device. I mean, it really was just crazy. There wasn't all this, you know, it was the beginning of Skype, like the very early days of Skype,
Yeah.
which is now gone, which is kind of crazy. But yeah, so as things have changed, I've learned along the way. And it's interesting you talk about sort of sharing deeply. My pilgrimage memoir, which is just behind me, which is about solo
Mm.
walking and a sort of midlife journey. It took me like more than 15 years to write that book because I was scared to put myself out there. And I did a Kickstarter for that book and I was petrified. I was like, oh, is this the line? Is this oversharing? But people really resonated with that book. So yeah, I feel like it's scary to be authentic and share your struggles. But also that's the thing that I think people do resonate with.
Yeah, that's the thing that connects people to you. They're drawn to you from that. And yeah, it reminded me actually when I was listening to some of your material, but also when you've just said that there, a very close friend said to me once, "So people don't want to know about you," and that always then kind of put me off. I thought I can't mention I in anything that I put out there, and I think
That's just mean. That's a very mean thing to say.
it definitely set me back a number of years, I would say, before I felt more comfortable to actually just showcase places where I've been, things that I'd thought about, you know, oh, that reminds me of, you know, those kind of posts on social media I think are really interesting because, you know, a lot of things that we see out there in the real world, we
Mm.
repurpose that for our own work, but it does remind us of things and, you know, that is our story and it's our take on things and yeah, embrace it.
Yeah, and again, for people listening, if it's amazing that you say that, and I do kind of echo that. I do remember feeling that, but mine was more, why would anyone be interested in me? Because I'm not an interesting person. Which
Yeah.
is, and then again, it's that sort of be quiet, sit in the corner kind of thing. And yet, if you think about, even if you're somebody who stays around your area, let's say, I know you like nature and walking, but maybe some people, they have their house and their garden and just their local area. But anyone else's local area is interesting to someone else, right? I mean, I live
Yeah.
in Bath in the southwest of England. You live, where do you live?
So I live Staffordshire, Cheshire border, but I've been to Bath, and yeah, I'm really
Yeah.
interested in Bath.
Well, exactly. So I don't know your area, you don't know my area that well. Even if I take photos of the flowers in the garden or some of the architecture or, you know, the view down the valley out my window, and that is interesting. So if you're listening and you're like, well, why would anyone be interested in me? Well, it's the same thing. I mean, I put pictures of my cats on Instagram. People love cat pictures. I mean, seriously.
Yeah.
I think you're right. You have to hook it into the things that resonate with other people. Like, I don't believe in just sharing cat photos. That's a bit pointless. But if it's going to serve your art, if it's going to serve your business, then there are ways to hook that into your personal life. But let's be clear, there's still a line. So, for example, I do share my struggles, but I don't usually share them whilst I'm in them. I
Mm.
usually share them later when I can share my lessons learned and how I emerged from that. So, my book Pilgrimage, as I said, took several years to write, and that was because I wasn't through the
Mm.
pilgrimage at that moment. So I needed to wait until my published words could be useful for the people who would read them. And that is
Yeah.
what memoir does. It's very much a journey from one state to another state. So if you're still in the middle of it somewhere, then don't publish it right now.
Yeah, that's great advice. So you need to go through that stage before it then
Mm.
gets ready to be published. I'm reading at the moment. You've probably read it, Beth Kempton, Fear,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
The way the fearless writer, and
Yes,
I
yes.
like how she refers to the three stages of writing as gaseous, liquid, and solid. I think it is, and how those different stages are sort of only when you come to the solid stage is that when it's being put together for the
Mm.
reader or for the listener. So yeah, exactly as you've described it there, it's sort of your journey for those first two stages, and then it gets released to the masses.
Or the few, either way.
As long as it helps one person, that you've done your job, haven't you? That's what I like to think.
Yeah, or it helps you. And I think that is very important part of writing is that writing a book will change you, the writer. And perhaps that's the most important change. And then, sure, put it out in the world, but writing a book will change your life. So, that's good
Yeah,
enough.
wonderful advice. Thank you. And I had planned some questions to ask you, Joanna, and I haven't asked you any yet. So I've got a couple of quick fire ones for you first. So I know you're one of these people, and I'm the same as well. You've got many books on the go. You read ones, you listen to ones, you've
Hmm.
got ebooks as well. So what was the last book that you held in your hand? And what
Oh,
did you
that's a
take away
tough
from
one.
it?
Oh, well, since we're on video, I can probably grab it. I'm writing a book on Gothic cathedrals. So this is the book I have just held in my hand. It's called Church Going, for those on the audio, A Stonemason's Guide to the Churches of the British Isles by Andrew Zaminsky. And Andrew is going to come on my books and travel podcast to talk about Gothic cathedrals and being a stonemason. I love stonemasonry. It's one of these fascinating things. And so last year I made a green man. You'll know green man in cathedrals. So that's in my garden. And so I'm interviewing him about that and visiting Gothic cathedrals for research for my next book. So that is the last book I held in my hand, and I do read some in print, and I'm sure Andrew won't mind, but it has got loads of underlines, folded pages. I essentially desecrate printed books. But I also often buy them in ebook and audiobook as well. So there's a tip: if people are putting their own books out, have ebook, audio, and print, especially for non-fiction, because people
Mm.
often buy in multiple formats.
Yeah, and it was interesting what you were saying about your podcast as well. That I think 28,000 was some of the highest downloads for some of the episodes, but then your video versions were actually closer to about 80,000, weren't they? So that different audience, different formats, and just being able to
Mm,
provide for what people want at the time.
yeah.
Yeah, great advice. And where was the last walk that you took? Oh, this is probably going to be somewhere where there's a churchyard, perhaps.
Yeah, well, I walk almost every day. So I live near the Kennet and Avon Canal in Bath, and often walk towards Bradford on Avon. And maybe we can put a link in the show notes because I've actually sort of documented that on my books and travel podcast. I've actually got the walk from Bath to Bradford on Avon along the canal, and several times a week, like 3 or 4 times a week, I'll walk like halfway, and that's like just a daily walk, like 10K. And then this weekend we went to the aqueduct, which is further along the canal, and then back. And it's I love walking along the canal because I'm happy to navigate if navigation is necessary. But what I love about the canal is it's the water's on one side, it's on your right walking in one direction, it's on your left walking back. So you can't get lost. It always changing. So you see the herons and different birds, and then there's always different boats and people and things happening and the seasons. It's just it's changing all the time, which I really love. But equally my body just walks and my brain can then think about things. So I know
Mm.
you appreciate this with the importance of nature for creativity. And so I walk a lot because I write a lot. And so I have input sometimes listening to stuff, or I'm just walking and then I take notes or I dictate stuff. And so yeah, walking, huge part of my life.
Yeah, I was going to ask if you take a notebook out with you, but
Just
you
my
just
phone.
said, yeah.
I take. I bought one of my journals. I say I bought it. It's here next to me. Because I take my journal if I am going for a longer day out, for example, or if I want to specifically go journal, I will go to a cafe or something. I don't
Mm.
find the act of walking is something that I will, sit down and journal.
Yeah, yeah. So just using it as part of the journey to get somewhere and then to
Yeah,
write.
yeah, and then
Yeah.
I'll do notes and just one-liners as I'm thinking, and then when I come back, I use the Things app. It's Mac only, but I use it and it's on the phone, and then it syncs to my MacBook Pro, and then I will sometimes I'll take the notes from the app and put them in my journal, or I'll use them. They might be to do things, they might be ideas, they might be just thoughts. And so some of them will go into book projects, some of them will go into to-do lists. So a lot of it is about architecture and why I'm
Mm.
interested in the Gothic stuff. And so I just kind of let it all bubble up. Lots of it is a load of crap. But that's fine too. You have to discard a lot as a writer.
Yeah, it's all part of getting what's down there, and then you can filter through and find out the juicy bits.
Exactly.
It just so I do quite a bit of trail running, and we went out on a trail run part way along the canal last night. And where we are, nobody knows what these are, so maybe at one day you could come up here and do a little bit of research. But they look a little bit like they're about so big, and they look a little bit like Lego men, all different colours, and they are nailed to stiles, posts along the
Hmm.
canal and
I'd say
that. And
it's art, probably. Somebody's
it will be,
art.
yeah, they came about during COVID time,
Hmm.
but nobody knows who put them there. It's almost like the Cheshire Banksy.
Yeah, yeah, well, that's nice. I mean, outdoor art and kind of that kind of guerrilla art part of it is not knowing. And it's just, there's another one where there's lots of little doors, tiny, tiny doors into little worlds painted on the side of roads and stuff. And
Yes.
I love that. I think it's very cool. But probably if you took a photo and then uploaded it to like ChatGPT or Google and said like, what is this? It will tell you.
Yeah, it might know. Every so often in a local Facebook group, you get somebody who's, I've just moved to the area and I've just seen these. Can anybody tell me what they are?
That's
And
cool.
no, I'm sorry, we can't. But yeah, it's one of those fascinating things. It could lead into another world for a story, I'm sure. So, if we could go back in time a little bit, Joanna, and I'd love to ask what part did reading and writing play in your childhood? And was there a particular book or maybe a particular moment that sparked your love for storytelling?
Yeah, well, I've always been a reader. My mum tells a story of when I was like 2, 3 years old. I'd come into her bedroom in the middle of the night and I wouldn't have a teddy. I would have my books. I would like drag books in with me into bed. And so I've always loved books and always been a reader. I'm just a quiet, introvert, bookish child who's now a grown up. I mean that's literally, I mean, looking back and sort of trying to remember, I read everything.
Mm.
But certainly I read a lot of the Hardy Boys and Willard Price books, things like African Adventure,
Yeah.
these sort of adventure things that I think were meant to be for boys, but I always loved them, and partly why I ended up writing action adventure in my Arcane series, I think. But yeah, I mean, I just always read, and then when I once I was allowed to walk alone to school and back, I would stop at the library. We lived near a library, so I would just always be in the library. And I think the librarians back then, so this would have been the 80s, were pretty open. There was none of the stuff we have now around trigger warnings or
Hmm.
obviously they were keeping an eye out, but boy, some of the stuff I read in that library, possibly
Yeah.
not appropriate. But I think that's part of it. If you are a bookish child, then you figure out what you like to read and you find different things. So yeah, I spent a lot of time in that library.
Yeah.
Yeah, so always read.
Yeah, it's funny you should say that. I always remember reading one of my dad's James Herbert books when I
Oh
was
yeah, I love James
probably,
Herbert. Yeah.
yeah, when I was about 9, 10. I scared the act. Oh, it really scared. I think it was the fog, and it really scared me. And it was wild, but I do like that kind of
Did you go
genre.
back? Because did you go back to Herbert's work?
I did read another one. I forget which one it was, but
Mm.
I kind of went a little bit more toned down. I used to really like Dean Koontz.
Oh yeah, Dean Koontz is great, but I decided to revisit the Herbert books a couple of years ago, and I read like 20 of them, and they're awesome. Again, they're very kind of 80s schlock, and yeah, I love a bit of horror. But yeah, I think I also read one too early and then came back to it later. But again, that's part of maturing as a
Yeah,
person and as a reader. So I kind of don't agree with stopping kids reading stuff like that,
yeah.
especially when you see the news. I mean, no one's stopping them watching the news.
No, exactly. I mean, it's just horrendous, isn't it? But yeah, you're right. You don't have the certification quite the same with
Yeah.
books. There's the 18 shelf or the 15 shelf, and then there's the U and the PG in the corner. But no, it's fascinating, and I've still got quite a few of my one of the downstairs actually. Because can you see all your book? Can you see your
Oh,
all of your
wonderful.
white author?
Spines.
Yes, all together there. But most of the fiction ones are downstairs. So yeah, you transitioned from IT consulting to become a full-time author entrepreneur. What what was that turning point? Can you remember what the turning point was for you to take that leap?
Well, I mean, when I actually left, it was 5 years or after I'd started writing. So realistically, like I said, 2005, 2006, made the decision that I wanted to get out of my job. I was just really miserable and I just didn't see the point in the work. And I was like, okay, well, how am I going to make a living as a writer? And I wasn't just going to leave and be poor. So I was like, I need to build this up to a business. So then I spent 5 years basically in the mornings, I'd get up at 5, I'd work before work on writing, and then I'd go to work, and then I'd come home and I'd work on starting the podcast, the website, all of that. And then I upskilled in professional speaking and a whole load of stuff. Like it took 5 years, and then I said to my husband, I just need to give this a go. I was making, about 1,000 a month on the side. So it was that classic side hustle, although it wasn't called that at the time. And then I was like, look, give me 6 months. And if I'm not making more money in 6 months, then I will just go back. I'll find another job. So yeah, so I left. But it did, just to be real. So I left in 2011 and it took until 2015. So another 4 years before I made up back up to my previous salary. So I
Yeah,
think that's really important for people. It is not just, oh, I'm going to write a book, leave job tomorrow, make $1 million. Like, no, that's
that's not the
that really,
reality.
no, that's not the reality. Like any kind of creative career, it's not, nobody says it's easy. But I mean, one of the reasons I started my own publishing company and why I'm an independent author is because I wanted to leave my job. And it is, you make a lot more money per book if you do it yourself. And you publish yourself and you do your own marketing. And I mean, I licensed some of my books to publishers, but I was able to leave my job because I was self-published.
Yeah, and I think that entrepreneurial spirit that you have, I might be wrong in saying this for you, but I know for a lot of people and certainly for me, there's that kind of control freak tendency there and wanting to,
Oh, for sure.
understand
Yeah.
everything and have sort of fingers in all of the pies. So that makes a lot of sense in taking that route. Yeah,
Mm.
but of
Yeah,
course
you
there are
have to
plenty.
enjoy that bit too. You have to enjoy business. And
Yeah.
I enjoy the business side as well. I think business is very creative.
Yeah, it is. And when you look at what you've done over the years as well, and how many other little avenues that you've got, for the Kickstarter, the Patreon, the audio books, the physical books. There's so many different facets to that one piece of writing almost. And sometimes I think people just get a bit fixated on the physical book, and that's the only thing to do. But there's so much more, and that's where the creative part comes in, and you can really get into enjoying that process.
Yeah, well, I've always said multiple streams of income is super important. So obviously lots of books, different genres, different platforms, different formats, different countries, different languages, and then also other income like my podcast income and my patrons and speaking, for example. Some people do teaching. I know you have journals and
Mm,
workbooks and things. And I mean, so we can add on these different streams, and that takes some of the pressure off our art. I'm sure some people have read Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert, but she really
yeah.
says in there, do not try and make money from your art because you put a lot of pressure on it. Um, which, you know, pros and cons, pros and cons. But
Yeah.
certainly, as I said before, I mean, some books are, I'm a very intuitive writer, so I don't write to market, I don't plot. Um, I write what kind of bubbles up, and that means sometimes books do sell and sometimes books don't sell.
Mm.
And such is the way it goes. But then they might not sell now, but maybe later they might sell at some other point.
Yeah, who knows? And different genres, subgenres, they become trends, don't they? Things that are in
Mm-hmm.
trend at the moment. And then, I mean, I think sort of erotica fantasy is quite popular at the moment, isn't it?
Romantasy,
Is that what
romantasy
it
on
is?
TikTok,
Romantasy.
yes.
So what sort of, you are multi-genre, you dark fantasy, crime, thrillers. What makes you try a certain genre or maybe stick with a certain genre? Where does the inspiration for those different stories come from?
Well, I read all over the shop, which is why I can't stick in one genre. So I mean, I read all the time. Um, so I think that makes a difference. I do think it's easier if people do want to make a living as a writer, especially as a fiction writer. If you can just write in one genre, it's much, much easier to make money. So that would be a sort of tip for people. But if you are sort of, we call ourselves multi-passionate and you can't help yourself, like I just wrote my last novel was Death Valley, which is like a mainstream thriller, no supernatural. And the one before that is called Blood Vintage, and that is folk horror and very like supernatural. And then obviously I've mentioned like a pilgrimage memoir, and then I've got action adventure. And so yeah, so really it's what bubbles up. Like I said, I feel like this is what I'm writing next. So actually this morning I just finished a short story which stemmed from a scuba dive. Well, I used to scuba dive in New Zealand, and so it stems from that period of my life, which was in the year 2000, 2001. So, 20 plus years ago now. And it's something I've kind of, it's noodled away in my brain. And
Yeah,
then I'm like, I think that goes in this short story collection. And the
yeah,
collection will be my next Kickstarter. And then at the same time, I'm researching this Gothic Cathedral project. And I have so many ideas, and my list of ideas is huge. It's never ending. But then I'm like, okay, this is the one that needs to happen next. That's
yeah.
how it goes, really.
Do you just get a gut feeling for that,
Yeah,
or do
yes,
you see a
intuition.
sign, or
It's a feeling. It's a feeling. I
yeah?
mean, I'm Myers-Briggs INFJ, so I'm intuition is part of how I live, I guess.
Yeah, I'm not sure what I am. I'm a bit intuitive, but also very introverted too.
Yeah, I'm an
Uh,
introvert too. Yeah. A lot of
yeah,
writers are, to be fair. I mean, why if
yeah.
you're not an introvert, it's quite hard to sit on your own writing a lot.
Yeah, it's funny. I've just been down to Capital Crime last week in
Oh
London.
yeah, was that fun?
Uh, Really good. Yeah, I went for the first time last year and the second time this year. I wanted to go this year to hear Karen Slaughter speak.
Oh yes, yeah.
Because I've
Karen's
read,
great. Very
she's
funny.
lovely. She's hilarious. Yeah, so I've been reading her for about 25 years she's been writing for now.
Mm.
So you'll be there in 5 years' time, won't you? And it amazes me how, the same things come up where that people say that, they're introverts, they don't really like being in social situations, they just want to
Mm.
write, they just got all these stories inside. And it's nice to be in that environment because, oh, these are my people was how I felt the first time I went.
Oh, great. Yeah.
So have you got a favourite book that you've written, or was there one that you found particularly challenging in some way, or do you just love them all?
It's always the next book, to be fair. It's like it's always the next project. I think if you fall in love with writing books, then the achievement is in like, I made this, and then you're ready for the next one. I'm not sure how healthy it is, but a lot of us don't celebrate the publication
Yeah,
because we're already in the next book. I mean, most
yeah,
of us who are professional writers, that's what we love. It's always the next project. In terms of the ones I feel like are most me, like I said, that book Pilgrimage, I think is very representative of a lot of me. And for fiction, my book Desecration, I feel like that's a really important book for me because it's the first book where I really just wrote super honestly without censoring myself. And it is a pretty dark book, but it also resonates with a lot of my interests. It's a murder mystery set in London, but it's based on the history of anatomy. So
mm,
it opens in an anatomy museum in London, and it's kind of the idea behind it is the physical body. Like why is it weird to have a body part in a jar in a anatomy museum? Like why is that weird? We know that's not alive. So,
yeah.
these kind of interesting feelings and yeah, so I feel like those two books and then also Writing the Shadow, my book for writers. I think you've got that one and oh, you've got it there.
There we go.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah, Writing the
And the
Shadow.
companion.
Oh, there we go. And the workbook. Yeah. So I feel like that book, again, took many, many years to write. I first started studying the shadow back at university in the 90s and it took a long time. But again, it's a very honest book. It's got a lot of memoir elements to it. And it's hopefully it will help people go deeper into their own life and their own writing practice. And that's a book actually that, so sells all the time but
Mm,
not at a massively high level. Same with Pilgrimage, same with Desecration, because
mm,
these are books that are not mainstream. They are
yeah.
not like, oh, everybody needs this book. No, that's not actually true. And I can say that's not actually true. Something like Writing the Shadow, people will say, oh, no, I don't want to do that.
Yeah, because they don't want to go there. Is that
Yeah,
what
they
they're
don't want to go
thinking?
there.
Yeah.
And but if
Mm,
you are ready to go there, then it can help you.
mm,
But yeah, I mean, I think that's important as a writer also. Though I think the reason I've been able to be a writer so long already, when I've seen so many people leave the industry, I think is because I lean into that intuition rather
mm.
than always trying to be writing some kind of bestseller.
Yeah, I think you're right, and I'm glad you mentioned that because writing in the shadow, delving into that shadow is a journaling, a strong journaling technique, and just getting
Mm,
to know yourself and actually feeling comfortable in that space, and just being able to explore that and give yourself permission to explore is
mm.
very insightful and very intuitive. And I think you don't have to sort of think, oh, if there's some dark thoughts and things coming up, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to go and act anything out or share that with anybody, but it really
Mm.
is a point of inspiration that people can work with and work very well with as well.
Mm.
So yeah, I've found that really helpful, and particularly having the journal companion to write in and being able to explore. And I went further than just the space that was in
Yeah.
in
It's
the
really
book
hard.
itself.
Well, you probably struggle with this too because you have journals that you sell on your website, and it's very hard to know. I mean, I go my Luke term. This is a Luke term, and I get plain paper and because I never know how long I'm going to write for, but when you have prompts for people to kind of write in, you don't know how much space to leave,
No.
because it always feels like, well, what if I want to carry on? But I mean, you just carry on somewhere else, basically.
Yeah, yeah. I'd recommend people always have a, like I've got here, always got a little bit of scrap piece of paper, that you can write additional thoughts down or continue on if you need to. But that is difficult. I've just done a Journal to the Self course. I don't know if you've heard of Kathleen Adams in America. So she's written a book, Journal to the Self, which is 18 different techniques. And I
Mm.
created this workbook companion, which was in addition to their workbook. And after feedback and speaking to people, a couple of them printed the workbook out, but they
Oh,
didn't use
okay.
any of the space in there. They just wanted it because they prefer to read physically than on the screen.
Mm.
So, how many people use that sort of space? I don't know, probably less than I really think that they
Yeah,
do.
yeah, yeah.
um, so you share a wealth of information, particularly for writers, authors on their own journey on your website, and I'll share quite a few of these in the links. You've got the podcast and all of these books, because you've got this one as well, haven't you?
Oh,
Successful self-publishing, which is going to be
that's the old edition. I've got the
yeah,
new
you're
edition.
doing the new edition now, aren't you? The
Oh
fourth
no, it's
edition.
out. It's out.
Is it
Successful
out already?
self-publishing. Yes, fourth
Uh,
edition. Make sure if people are watching or yeah, get the fourth edition. It's just come out.
I've,
So yeah.
yeah.
I mean, this is the thing. I first put the first edition out, I think, back in 2010 or something. And, things change in self-publishing. It used to just be one choice, and now there are so many.
Yeah, yeah. I booked onto your AI session at the weekend. I'm really looking forward to that, learning about some of the different tools and
Yeah,
structures
yeah.
for processing. But what kind of tools and techniques do you find that are most helpful for you during the ideation process, or maybe the fine-tuning process?
Well, I mean, like I mentioned, a lot of my ideas are just one-liners or they're in my journal, and then I moved to Scrivener. So I'm writing that short story in Scrivener. I've used Scrivener for like 20 plus years. It's brilliant. I don't see why I would need anything else. So I write every book in Scrivener. For a sort of intuitive discovery writer who doesn't write in order, it's great because you just chuck everything in there and then you move things around. And so I do everything up until my editor works on the book in Scrivener.
Mm.
And then I move into Vellum for the formatting side of it. But yeah, I highly recommend Scrivener. It's great. So yeah, for fiction and non-fiction.
Yeah, perfect. So do you start on a paper and pen at all, or do you just kind of go straight
No, I
into the
mean
electronic?
my notes in my journal are just thoughts and
Mm.
stuff. But the books I write in Scrivener.
And it's that, yeah, it's really nice to hear as well that you're kind of all over the place in the way that you write things. So more of a pantser than a plotter, would you
Yeah,
say?
I prefer the phrase discovery writer. I think that's what I'm doing. I'm just discovering what there is
Yeah.
as I go.
I think actually it might have been you that I first heard the term discovery writer from. And I think I might have included you in one of my master's assignments as saying discovery writer, and how I connected with that phrase and that
Yeah,
term.
because pantsing is American. We don't do that here.
No, we're much more sophisticated than that. No, but that's it makes a lot of sense to me. Um, I think you might have touched on this a little bit before, but we mentioned that you sold books in 176 different countries. How do you write for such a diverse audience, or would I be right in saying that you write for yourself first and then that comes out
Well,
for?
you write for yourself, but you publish for a reader.
Mm,
So, but the point is that we as independent authors publish globally. So my book that's all in English. There are some in other languages, but most of my sales are in English. But we're not that diverse. Like you said, for example, one of my books, How to Write a Novel. Somebody who buys that in Kenya, for example, where I've sold that book in Kenya, they want to write a novel the same as, somebody listening in America or someone in India or Finland or whatever. So I feel like it's not actually a diverse audience. It's people who want the same thing all over the world. They just live in a
mm,
different country. And this is a real difference between traditional publishing and self-publishing is when I upload my books to, let's say, Kobo has the widest reach. And I think it's like 186 countries now. I mean, it really is. Even Antarctica, I've sold a book in. So, I
wow.
mean, if your book is available digitally, let's say this is digital, you can order them in print, but digitally, either in audio or ebook, people can download them all over the world if you make them available.
Yeah.
So if people sign a traditional publishing deal, it might be for, let's say, UK Commonwealth, or it might be for North America. And then your books will only be in those countries. And even if you sign World English, they may not publish it everywhere. So this is something really important for authors to remember. If you're signing a contract, really look at, if they say World English, are they really publishing it globally? And if they're not, then don't sign World English. Do some of that yourself. So I think that's important for people to remember, is how easily you can have your books available globally. And my print books are also available in, print on demand all around the world. So I think that's a good tip.
Yeah, find the right platform and also have your contract or whatever it is that you might have looked over by the right people, so that you know that you're going to be reaching the right audience. Should that be that, you have a contract with someone. That is, yeah. Yeah, great advice. Thank you. So what's next for you in 2025? We've mentioned that Death Valley's come out and that you've got the 4th edition of your successful self-publishing book. What's next?
Well, the two things I mentioned, the short story collection will be my next Kickstarter, and then the Gothic Cathedral project will be the next one, which will be in 2026. But that's the one I'm mainly working on. The collection is more of an editing process now. The story I've just written is for the collection, but it's more about designing the collection, which is a whole nother thing.
Yeah.
Trying to arrange your stories into some coherence and sort of doing another edit and all of that. So that's more of a publishing project. And then, the Gothic Cathedral, that's what I'm looking forward to. But, if people are interested in that kind of thing, my Books and Travel podcast has a lot about my book research. And I talk to other authors who were in, like I said, I mentioned Andrew Zieminski, who's coming on. And, a lot of the stuff behind my books I talk about on Books and Travel. And then the Creative Penn podcast is very much for writers, and I talk about the business of writing there.
Yeah, and there is a lot of tips on that as well, so I can share both of those links, and also you can find all of your social media channels through the websites, which is great. So I suppose if we just wrap up by asking you, Joanna, what advice would you give to someone that's just starting their journey as an indie author?
Yeah, well, I think with all of this, like we sort of circling back to the beginning where I said, 20 years later, here I am. And it really is that. It's sort of thinking, look, how do I want to spend the next decade of my life, for example? How do I want to spend the next year of my life? And if you want to write a book, you can do that. Nobody's stopping you except you. And so I would say to people, get out your diary, get out your schedule time with yourself, and then turn up for that time. Both you and I turned up for this recording on time. We respect each other, and that is what we have to do with ourselves. So if you say, I'm going to turn up for myself and write this novel, or I'm going to do whatever in that time, turn up and do it in that time as you would respect anyone else.
Yeah.
And then you will achieve whatever your goal is. But you do have to get out your schedule, plan that time, and then spend that time. Even if you don't know what you're going to do in that time, still turn up for that. So that's what I would say to people.
Yeah, show up, celebrate when you've achieved something as well. And on your podcast, you share a lot of resources and visual resources for your own plans, and then you look back over what you've achieved. So there's things there that people can really take inspiration from. So it's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you, Joanna, and to get to know you a little bit better. I first bought some books for you. I was looking in 2024 in February, so it's been just over a year, and I can't honestly remember how I came across you. I think it might have been your podcast initially when I was searching for something, but yeah, thank you very much for everything that you share, and all of your fiction books and all of your non-fiction books as well. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Oh, well, thanks for having me, Anna.
You're more than welcome. Thank you for listening to today's Writing with Purpose podcast. Having conversations with fellow writers or adventure enthusiasts brings two of my biggest loves in life together, writing and nature connection. I've been a copywriter and content creator for 23 years, but my passion is writing for well-being, and I'm on a mission to share the benefits that putting pen to paper has personal wellness with as many people as possible. If you want to learn more about writing for your well-being and journaling techniques, please connect with me in my Facebook group, Journaling with Anna.